A fact many human rights activists have known for years is finally getting acknowledgement from President Obama that U.S. drone strikes have in fact killed civilians. POTUS made those comments during a press conference just days ago, reigniting the conversation about the use of drones. RT's Anya Parampil has more.
Last week, during the Nuclear Security Summit in Washington, D.C., President Obama fielded a question about so-called anti-terror operations. In his answer, he brought up the issue of drone strikes. Take a listen.
I think there's been, in the past, legitimate criticism that the architecture, the legal architecture around the use of drone strikes or other kinetic strikes wasn't as precise as it should have been, and there's no doubt that civilians were killed that shouldn't have been.
No doubt that civilians are killed, says Obama, despite the fact his administration has denied to apologize for or acknowledge drone strikes in the past. But the numbers are undeniable. According to the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, which tracks strikes in Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, and Afghanistan since 2002, the U.S. has conducted a total of 881 drone attacks. If you take away the 51 strikes George W. Bush launched, that leaves Obama responsible for 830 of those strikes. As a result of those strikes, a total of 6,927 people have been killed. And while it's difficult to be precise and identify the dead, the Bureau estimates 1,175 of those people were civilians, 236 of which were children. The Obama administration touts the CIA's drone program as a more targeted alternative to conventional warfare. However, thanks to the drone papers leaked to The Intercept last year, we know that during one 5-month period, for example, of Operation Haymaker in Afghanistan, 90% of the people killed in airstrikes were not the intended target. Even when intended targets are hit, it's not without any cost. Last January, 2 al-Qaeda hostages, American contractor Warren Weinstein and Italian worker Giovanni Loporto, were killed in a strike alongside 2 al-Qaeda suspects who were also American citizens. Ultimately, even successful strikes are subject to legal questions, and only time will judge constitutional scholar President Obama. In Washington, Anya Parampil, RT.
To discuss this, I was joined earlier by longtime drone activist and author of the book Drone Warfare: Killing by Remote, founder of Code Pink, Medea Benjamin. I first asked her if she thought that the limited press these drone strikes get, if any, when they do make air, if using terms like militant or combatant or terrorist was too broad a description that masks the reality of those who are actually killed.
We are never told the names of people who were killed, except very rarely. In fact, of the over 6,000 people that have supposedly been killed, we've been told the names of less than 100 of them. And we've been told that, don't worry about it, most of them are militants. Well, we should worry about it. First of all, I think most of the people that are killed are definitely not an imminent threat to the United States. I also don't think that any of those people have been killed. The U.S. has tried to capture them. And Obama said that capture is always the first thing we tried to do, and a drone strike is the last thing we do. But that's not true. During Obama's entire over 7 years now, he's only added 1 person to Guantanamo. Not that I want more people in Guantanamo,
right,
but it means that instead of capturing them, he is simply killing them. So a lot of questions remain. And I'm glad Obama is at least saying, he's going to give us some information. And yes, innocent people have been killed, acknowledging, but we demand more information.
Now, while the U.S. media may not give much airtime to the consequences of U.S. drone strikes, the foreign media, especially local media over in the Middle East, they get to see things that we don't air, that we don't see here in the U.S. They show some gruesome images following those strikes. So by virtue of even just TV exposure of this nature, do you think that this aids to anti-American sentiment that of course later causes people to act in terroristic ways?
Totally, and I've seen it with my own eyes because I travel to these countries, to Pakistan, to Yemen, to Afghanistan. I see and meet with the families of drone strike victims, and it's not just those families that now hate the United States, it's the entire village that does. So we are creating more victims, more people who hate us every time we blow up somebody with the drone strike.
On
victims, yes. And what it means is that we're in a constant state of perpetual war. So we kill some people, then more people hate us, then they pick up arms, then we have more reason to go and kill some people. And at some point, when are we, the American public, going to say this isn't working?
Now, why do you think it took President Obama so long to finally admit this?
It's interesting because we at Code Pink with other groups have been protesting outside the drone bases in the United States. We have been interrupting the president at his speeches, calling for an end to drone strikes. And pilots have started to come out and say, I regret what I did. I feel terrible what I did. So, that has some mounting pressure to it. And then add to that all the people internationally who see what we don't see on their TV screens or in their own villages. And the mounting pressure, I think, is coming out in that the president feels obligated to talk about it and also said they're going to give us some figures soon. We're waiting for those. We don't know how they're going to determine them, what we're going to get, but at least they feel obligated to say something.
He's just kind of gotten to the point that he can't not acknowledge.
That's right.
Now, these drone strikes have been quiet over the last several months, at least in Pakistan. There have been more than 4,000 deaths there that are reported anyway. 2% of them are the actual targets of the people that they're actually looking for. But now there are accusations of Saudi Arabia, who is obviously U.S.-backed, performing drone strikes in Yemen by arms deals acquired through South Africa. They're getting drones through South Africa. Is the U.S. still culpable here?
Well, sure, and there, let's not limit it to drones. The U.S. is selling all kinds of weaponry, including cluster munitions, which are internationally banned, and the Saudis are conducting daily bombing campaigns. So whether it's drones or with piloted aircraft, the U.S. is complicit in the killing of thousands of civilians in Yemen, and certainly war crimes. The Saudis have blown up hospitals and markets and schools and all kinds of civilian areas. So U.S. is totally complicit in the war crimes in Yemen.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, Medea. Always appreciate it when you're here. That was Medea Benjamin, co-founder of Code Pink.